presenter is dying to help me. Look at that. You really are part of the community, Levi. You're like jumping in. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our plenary session. We are so excited to be here. I hope everyone had an enjoyable luncheon if you were able to join us today for lunch. I want to welcome all of you here to the Embracing Community Learning Beyond the Classroom session. My name is Kathleen Perales, and on behalf of Mesa Community College, our president, Dr. Danielle, our vice president of student affairs, and the amazing Sendas team, we want to welcome you to this afternoon session. So thank you all for being here. We are on Zoom, and our presenter is aware, as I am now, and so we'll be sure to talk into the mic. As you guys are aware, the purpose of the symposium is really about developing the deep connections between education and community. It's really about exploring how education isn't just something that happens in the classroom, but it happens in spaces where we live and where we work and we interact. For those of you that know me, while I do have a scripted version, I do tend to go off script sometimes. And so I do want to say that I'm excited to have our presenter here because after reading this gentleman's bio, he really does embody those intersections between education, community, learning, whether it's in the workforce, whether it's through the community engagement, and the many, many amazing books that he's not only just authored, but illustrated, because he's an incredibly talented individual, and I'm so excited that he's here today with us. So it is my honor to introduce Mr. Levi Leyba, get the B in there. As I said, he is an accomplished author, but I will read a little bit more here. An accomplished author of dual language children's books, working to ensure that young people, especially in bilingual communities, have access to books to help them develop a love for reading and learning. I also want to share that as an engaged community member, he is deeply involved in fostering connections and supporting initiatives that empower others to learn and grow and thrive in their communities. And Mr. Leyba is a family man, and he is joined today by his lovely wife, Miss Nicole. Yes, you are. And his amazing sons, Sage and Sinjin. There they are. Have you read your dad's books? You have. Are they pretty good? Yeah, they're pretty good. What about the drawings? Are the drawings good? Okay, fabulous. I'm so glad to hear that. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Leyba. Thank you for joining us today. We're happy to have you.
Thank you. So, hi everybody. How are you doing? Good. So let me back up a couple years. Prior to joining a local police department, I was an adjunct professor, and I taught marketing here, and as well as how to start and operate a small business. I was an entrepreneur. I have an entrepreneur mindset, so I always wanted to go ahead and instruct young minds, so I became an adjunct professor, and then I decided to go ahead and join the police academy at a ripe old age of 41, and which everybody in my class was half my age. They were celebrating their 21st birthday, and it was great. But other side, I do illustrate and my children books, and the only reason why my children read my books is not because of my storyline, but because I have an Easter egg in every single book, which makes them look at every single page. And that Easter egg is a little ninja. So I put a little ninja somewhere in the artwork in every single one of my books, so it kind of to go ahead and get them to look at every single page, and it works. Did that small little thing. So, like I said, I'm Levi Leyba. I have to stay here. Normally, I like to walk around. I mean, I'm a person that I like to get engaged in everything. Sometimes I'll walk around the class. I'll be behind you, but because of the microphones, I have to stay here. So I apologize if I'll try not to make it where it's so mundane where you guys will fall asleep. If I see the 1-2 second blinks, I'll go ahead. I'll slap my hands. Okay. Just to get you. Okay. So yeah, right. Well, so funny. This picture right here. That's what I'm used to. I'm used to standing in front of elementary school kids. So when I need their attention, I just go ahead and go like that, and they know automatically to be quiet, and I'm able to get their attention that way. So it's a little different being here in front of adults, but that's typically what my audience is like. So I am a community member, I'm a connector, and like I said, I put those little ninjas in my book, and I call myself a visual ninja for that reason. So I go ahead and add those in every single book. In fact, I'm also doing like an adult children book, where I put a ninja in there as well. So those are actually it's gonna follow my theme everywhere I go. So the books that I write, the reason why I wrote them was when I got my master's degree, I started doing my final research paper on early childhood literacy and its effects on social and economic later on in life. Just knowing how to read literacy itself provides not only confidence in youth, but it also gives them the ability to go ahead and not be a part of the system. They're less likely to be involved in any type of gangs. Teen pregnancy rates drop as long as literacy is there. So literacy ties into a lot of different things. So I said, how can I go ahead and help the community out? So I wanted to do some bilingual children books. And the reason why I did that was because the majority of people at the Title I schools that I was looking at, I was researching, they spoke Spanish. And so I said, okay, well, parental involvement's huge when a child learns how to read, and especially when a child brings home their homework. And if they don't have a parent that can read in English, what the homework assignment is, then that kind of hurts that child from developing further, like as their peers that actually speak English at home. So I decided to do bilingual children books where I kill two birds with one stone. The first is obviously having the child have that interaction with the parent, because a child can bring home a book and have a parent read to them because they can read the Spanish and the child can read the English, and then it works vice versa. When I was doing my research, I noticed that people that came from other countries, when they wanted to learn how to read English and speak English, they check out children books. So I said, okay, well, I'll go ahead and I'll translate it in Spanish and in English so the parents can learn English and the children can learn how the whole interaction about literacy and everything else when it comes to it. So I provide them for free at no charge to Title I elementary schools. I get big businesses to sponsor me. And whenever I do events or anything like that, and there is like a monetary fee, I say, you know what, don't pay me, let's just buy some books. And then we can go ahead and we can donate those to the local Title I schools. So I do those across the valley. As I stated, I joined the police academy when I was 41 years old. Yesterday was actually my last day. I resigned from there because I wasn't getting the fulfillment that I originally thought I was gonna have. The reason why I joined the academy at 41 was because I've always had a passion for law enforcement, mainly the community, and I just didn't want to get where I was 60, 70 years old, and I'm like, what if? Well, what would have happened if I didn't, or if I didn't do that? So I'm glad I tried it. I gave it a full 6 years. I think I made a great impact because I got the department autism certified. I was able to come up with a lot of different programs for the neurodivergent and autism community. I was able to create the most successful events that brought not only just the department together, but it brought other divisions like the fire department, health and wellness, parks and rec, and we just did a bunch of great events. And I was responsible for branding. I branded all their vehicles, their logos, the whole department look and feel. So when you see a Gilbert police vehicle, not the black and white one, but the one with the cool little stripe, that's my idea. So I was able to do a lot of things with that department because I was utilizing my skills prior to law enforcement, which was in marketing and design. Yeah, thanks. I write these books through my nonprofit, which is a 501c3, and we have a couple of different programs through there. In addition to me writing these books, my wife, she also runs a run program called We Run Mesa, and that's also catered to Title I elementary schools to get the kids off of their computers, off of their video games, outside running, interacting, meeting members of the community. I saw my first yawn. And I was also able to go ahead and create another program that I'm gonna be catering and I'm gonna be releasing soon, where I can help other police departments and other law enforcement agencies go ahead and get into schools. So that's gonna launch pretty soon, so we can go ahead and get that youth engagement, because I don't know if you guys knew this, but Gilbert was known in the news for youth violence, and there was a lot of things, and me being the PIO, the public information officer, I had to take a lot of the media inquiries, and I was the one that was the face, in addition to our command staff and whatnot. So having gone through that, I know that it's hard and difficult for law enforcement to get into the communities, so I want to create programs that go ahead and help with that. Okay, so this is where I grew up. I grew up in a neighborhood in California. This was actually down the street from me. It was in a city called Rowland Heights. It's in LA County. And fortunately, I was exposed early on to different cultures. Along with different cultures, I was given the opportunity to ask a lot of questions, because what happened at my house wasn't happening to my best friend's house. It wasn't happening to the friend, after school we go and jump on the trampoline. It was all these different ethnicities and cultures getting together, and I was able to learn a lot with different cultures. So that fostered my love for just being open to everything and embracing the community even more. Like I said, it says right there, a multicultural environment, it just allows for the ability to have questions. All right, so I call this Answering the Call, Courage, Community, and Connection. So it's about what you guys are doing right now, embracing the community, learning beyond the classroom. So outside of the syllabus, we have learning that sticks, the growth that lasts, and the transformation that changes lives. And it happens everywhere. It can happen in hallway conversations. It can happen when you notice that a student is struggling. It can also happen when a student is connected with the right resource at the right time. So when I was coming up with this being up here, I wanted to provide you guys with information that hopefully it'll kind of open up a different mindset. From my law enforcement background, I love to do research. That's pretty much ultimately what we do is we research things. And so I wanted to go ahead and see what types of calls for service happen in this area. I thought it'd be kind of something unique because not a lot of people know what goes on outside of the school. So I said, you know what, let me go ahead and let me see if I can pull some data using, the calls for service in that particular area. So I chose this address as the center point. I went to LexisNexis, which is a data analytics tool. It's open to the public. It's not something that's just for law enforcement. You can just go to their website and you can start searching. I went ahead and I pulled up Mesa Community College. So I typed in 1833 West Southern Avenue in Mesa, and I chose just 1 month. So from March 16th to April 15th, I found that Mesa Police Department responded to 180 calls for service, and that's just in 1 month. And those calls range from, trespassing, assault, traffic stops, theft, noise complaints, you name it. Whatever call that 911 got or their non-emergency number got, and they dispatched a police officer, that pulled up right here. So 180, and you'll see the radius of a 1 mile. So I said, okay, great. So this information, what can I do with this information? So I said, well, let's compare this with other schools. So let's go ahead and let's see what happens if we were to go to Scottsdale Community College. So I pulled up a 1 mile radius, and I found out that they responded to 3 calls for service. But if you look at where they are, they're on the res. So obviously I said, okay, well, that's not really fair, right? So I said, well, let me increase that to 2 miles. So I increased it to 2 miles, and we jumped up to 52 calls for service, right? So if you remember from Mesa, they're at 180, okay? So that's still a big difference. Speaking of, okay. So that's 181 calls for service. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so then I went to Chandler Gilbert Community College, which is obviously not near a reservation. I pulled up the same 1 month kind of timeline from March 16th to April 15th, and the total calls for service within a 1 mile radius was 20. Then I went ahead and I said, okay, well, let me increase that to 2 miles because I did it for Scottsdale. So they jumped up to just 61 calls for service. So if you recall, Mesa has 180 calls for service in just 1 month within a 1 mile radius. So thinking of that, I said, okay, well, let me go back to Mesa and let me see how many calls for service for a 2 mile radius. So LexisNexis caps out at 500 calls for service. So there was over 500 calls for service in a 2 mile radius within this campus where we're at right now. So I just want that to sink in a little bit because obviously with that, there's a lot of other baggage that comes along with that. It's not just that, okay, these are calls for service. These are calls for service that people that go to this school, this is what they're experiencing. This is what they have. This is their life. So I just wanted to go ahead and just let that sink in for a little bit because that's a lot of calls for service for just one little area. And this is primarily Mesa. Mesa Area South. Yes, ma'am. Sure. The 180? Yes. The one, so right here, that little dot, that's where we are right now. Yes. This area, yeah. This is all Mesa. Yes? It will with the 2-mile radius. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Mesa is not going to respond to calls for service. So here's the border right here. So this is the border. This is Tempe and Scottsdale. And then right here, this is going to be Gilbert when you go south of baseline. But as you see, there's still calls for service that get responded from Mesa. Yeah, they're overlapping, but it's close to the border. So when you become a police officer, you're a police officer for the state of Arizona. You go to the Arizona Police Academy, and you're certified through the whole state. Even though you're with one department, you can still go ahead and pull over somebody if they're in Tempe, if they're in Scottsdale, if they're somewhere else. But you primarily stay in but like just say you started like a traffic stop and you're in Mesa and they just crossed the line over baseline, then your dispatcher will let Gilbert know, hey, we have somebody, we're crossing the line, and then they'll send additional units to help out. But yes, you are right. That is gonna kind of be overlapping a little bit, especially when we went to the 2-mile radius. They're all, so for Scottsdale, the ones where we had the 2 or 3 calls for service, those were mainly traffic stops. So it's not really nothing that's gonna be like breaking down somebody's door or anything like that.
So that radius,
No, you're fine. No, you're good.
the Scottsdale radius, what's that area?
Yes, yeah, it's north and south. These are calls for service that Scottsdale responded to. So the community college has a Scottsdale address.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if something were to happen there, then yes, Scottsdale PD will be called out. Yeah. Correct. Yes. Yeah, so apartment complexes are definitely not only a headache for police officers, but it also adds a lot of density, like you were saying. So there is more, obviously, Mesa has over 500,000. I know for a fact that Gilbert has 280,000. I don't know what Scottsdale population is, and I don't know what Chandler's is as well. But yeah, so if there is a lot of apartment complexes in one area, then yes, you are going to get a huge density in that one particular area where you might get like 15 calls for service one night, where if you're in another area that's kind of spread out, you might not get that within the 1-mile radius for the same number of calls for service. So that's a good observation. Yeah. Any other questions with this, Matt? Okay. All right, so the whole idea, the reason why I want to do that was obviously to provide the context that, the students that live in this area, they have a lot of different things that happen to them, and that might come up with a lot of different things like social disorders where they're navigating environments that have those social disorder. Even though they might not be directly involved, they are still affected. It could be a cousin, it can be a friend, it could be a neighbor, or it could be something that they just witnessed. 2, 3 in the morning, they get woken up because somebody's breaking down a door, serving a search warrant. And that affects them. That affects them throughout their lives. It provides trauma where students at this campus are navigating environments that are filled with trauma, and obviously having just police contacts, even though if it's negative or positive, having more of that law enforcement kind of interaction definitely plays a lot in whether or not a student can be affected or not. So it can induce stress. Everybody knows that, obviously when you guys don't have enough sleep, you guys are kind of, not 100% at peak. And same thing for this, if they get affected and they keep seeing stuff like that happens, and there's a lot of law enforcement interactions in their neighborhood, that's going to affect how they act and how they interact with other people. Some students, if they're not directly involved, it's something that it's still going to affect them, like I've been saying. These people, I know a lot of you guys might not live in Mesa, but for someone like this, this is their home. This is where they are. You guys might just come here and come to work, and then maybe you live somewhere else. I was like that too. I lived in Mesa, and I worked in a different area. So it's like it's just common. For me, it was because I don't want to go to my local Safeway and see someone I just arrested. So it was a little different. Yeah, but but at the same time, these students, the ones especially that live in that radius, they're here. I mean, this is their home, and this is where they grew up. You guys got the tour, right? Yeah. Okay, so if you looked at that map, we didn't even hit downtown Mesa. I mean, that was like within maybe the 3-4 mile radius. I mean, this is just over here in this area. If I were to pull up the data for downtown Mesa, that'd be way different. We'd probably get 500 plus instantly. I mean, right away. Maybe within a week instead of a whole month. So what happens beyond the classroom, it may not be like your guys' day-to-day, but for them, this is their home, this is their life. Okay, so then I started saying, okay, now we have this information, we have this data, what can we do about it? What can we learn from it? And I found this company called Vera Institute of Justice. It's an accountable justice system, and they came up with a study of the hidden costs and what policing really does to a community. So I thought that that'd be great information to go ahead and share with you guys some of the things that they were able to pull up. So this is actually an actual crime scene that happened in Mesa I was able to grab. That's a command. I don't know if you guys see that little motorhome right there. That has everything. That has everything that they have to. They can operate anywhere they want. They can communicate with all the local stations. They can download whatever information they need. They can communicate with the BWCs, which is the body-worn camera. That's like a mobile police station inside that thing. So when you see that, that means something major happened. And I only know that because that's where I would have to go when we got calls for service and it was involving Mesa. I would be inside there with them trying to figure out what I can say to the media, what I can't say. So when you guys see that in the neighborhood, then you know that something large is happening. It's taking effect. No, they won't leave it. It's usually parked at the station, and it's only called out whenever they need to have it at the station. Yeah, and they cost over $1 million. I mean, they're very, very expensive. So, taking a step back, obviously going and thinking, okay, what does this actually do to a person? What does it do to a student? And what does it do to a neighborhood? So they have touched upon 4 key areas where policing has kind of like a ripple effect. And the first one is health. And I'm going to go over all these after it, but I'm just going to tell you right now, the first one is health. Then it also affects education, which is why we're here today. It's going to affect the economic security, and then it's going to affect civic engagement as well. So with health, routine exposure to policing, even if they're not the ones that are affected by it, or they're not the ones that are actually being stopped, can impact physical and their mental health. Studies show that people living in healthy policed areas report more anxiety, sleep issues, they have an increased level of PTSD, like symptoms, and it's just affecting them overall in general. They have chronic stress, and for the youth, it's even more damaging. So when we get to the kids prior to them coming even into community college, when they're in junior high or in high school or even in elementary school age, it's affecting them in their early developmental stages. Just like how learning how to read kind of affects a child by the time they're in 4th grade. If they're not in 4th grade and they don't know how to read, that kind of affects them for the rest of their life. So right now, the chronic stress during development, it can distort how they process emotion, think critically, respond to authority figures, to include teachers and mentors. They just might not be as engaged as a child that grew up in, say, a middle class to upper class neighborhood. And it's the same thing that happens with literacy. That's how I kind of know, like, okay, well, there's a huge difference between, the different generation, economic generation. Okay, so education. So when students experience or witness negative police encounters, they're likely to miss school. They score lower on standardized tests. They take fewer advanced courses, and they drop out before graduation. In a new study in New York, they found that stop and frisk policies accounted for nearly 1.35 missed school days for Black students, directly contributing to the racial achievement gap. So when we say that environment affects education, it's just not a metaphor, it's actually measurable, according to even just the simple maps that we were able to pull up using that LexisNexis. Okay, economic security. So having police encounters, it can alter financial futures. So a single arrest, as we all know, even if they're not even convicted, it can reduce the chance of somebody getting a job interview because, if they're gonna have 2 candidates, one has a record or they've been arrested, and the other one doesn't, I mean, they're not supposed to play favorites, but we're not there making the decisions. It's the employers. The increase of likelihood of needing public assistance is greater. And for young adults in their prime working years, it can reduce their financial assets by 50%. So if families that are already living on the edge, for this to happen to them, if they were to have more police interactions, it's not an inconvenience. It can be really devastating to a family, especially if you're, the bread maker, the one that's making the money, gets put in jail. Not only does it just not have a good kind of a good reaction with the family, obviously they have to struggle, but they're also, a young child sees that and they don't really have someone to look up to anymore. Which is why, when I was in the police department, I would always try to go ahead and give my number out to as many kids as I saw possible, because even at 2, 3 in the morning, when you see them walking around, something's going on. They're not supposed to be out and about. So I would give them my cell phone and say, hey, I'm up anyways, so might as well call or text me. And I would do that with as many kids as possible, because I don't know what's going on in their personal life. You just don't know. And that's the same going to be for these students here that go to this school. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know why they're doing certain things and why maybe they missed that day of school, or maybe they turned in their paper late. It's like, okay, well, why did they do that? Kind of a thing. Yes, ma'am. 2. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So one kid, I was driving, I was on Germain Road, I was at a fire station doing paperwork, and I saw somebody with like a black figure with a backpack walking across the street, and I saw him sitting on a curb. It was like 1, 2 in the morning, and I drove up to him, stopped, and I sat down on the curb with him. I said, hey man, what's going on? And he's like, I just got in a fight with my dad earlier tonight, and it was a school night, and he's like, I just figured if I go to school now, I'll be there on time, and I won't have my dad get mad at me. And I said, okay. I said, buddy, let's go ahead and let's take you home right now. So on the way there, and I started learning more about him. I gave him my phone number, my card, and I said, look, like I was saying earlier, I'm up anyways. I said, in fact, you're gonna help me from falling asleep if you call me. So please give me a call. And he did call me one time, and that was it. Another kid, he was on the spectrum, and he ran away a lot. He eloped all the time on his bike, and he says I was the only one that knew where he used to hide, because I knew all his hiding spots, because I used to find him. And he would call me every so often, shoot me text messages. But he has his own things going on. He's very, very smart. I think he's a high functioning autistic boy, and he's even though he's like 15, he's definitely mentally, I think he's like 18, 19, 20, because he's in that little area that he loves electronics, he loves a bunch of little things. It's just he's focusing on certain things. So I had about to actually reach out. Other kids, they wouldn't call me, because if they knew that if I was out, then I would bust them doing something. So I don't know if that meant they stayed home or not, but yeah, so too. So good question. Okay, so civic engagement. This was the 4th one. So a lot of police interactions in a neighborhood with youth, they're gonna lose faith. I mean, they are ultimately gonna go ahead, and it's gonna reduce the amount of times that they're gonna ask for any type of help. So communities exposed to constant policing lose faith in public systems. They're less likely to vote. They're less likely to open a checking account. They're less likely to get medical care when they need it. And like I said, they're just less likely to ask for help at all. So it's not just something that law enforcement needs to look at, even though they do look at all these things in certain areas, but it also affects schools, housing programs, and pretty much almost everything, having these types of interactions. So prior to, when we first moved out here, my wife and I, I was a transplant from California, I say, one of the things that we need to do is we need to get back to the community. So I started serving on nonprofit boards, and I became really active. I started serving on New Leaf. I served on the Mesa Association of Hispanic Citizens, the East Valley Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Visit Mesa. I was on a lot of different boards, and I was able to pull up with a lot of city resources, which kind of helped me out as a police officer, because when I see somebody struggling, a family member, or I see a child, a youth, a teenager, somebody struggling, I knew where I can turn them for more help. I can give them the resources they need. So I thought that it'd be great if I provide you guys with a couple of resources, so that way if you guys have a student that might need help, I can go ahead and I can put you in the right direction. So the first one is the New Leaf. This was the largest nonprofit that I ever sat on. I was on the board, and I was on the board for about 3 years prior to joining the police department. They have a lot of different help in the area. I mean, they're even at the courthouse at Gilbert helping people get orders of protection. I mean, they have a bunch of different services that you just go to their website, and that's what the QR code points you to. You can learn a lot of what they do. One of the things I wanted to highlight was their Mesa Can kind of a sector of it. They help low-income households across Mesa with services that include financial assistance, education assistance, employment assistance, and health assistance. So one of the great things about New Leaf is, I don't know if you guys know of La Mesita. What they do is not only do they help families come in at a low cost, but they get them on their feet. They help them with their resume. They help them find jobs. They have a daycare center in there, which helps out tremendously, because I don't know if you guys know this, but it's like daycare is almost paying a mortgage on a house nowadays. It's expensive, and families can't afford that. So and this provides that for families like that. It gives them the assistance. So it's ultimately filling in the gaps and whatever opportunities are out there and the resources that are in the community itself. Here's the website, and then obviously that QR code goes directly to it. The next one is called Save the Family. So this is a housing and wraparound support program. It's actually here in Mesa. They do case management, supportive services. So they provide housing and services for more than 600 homeless and impoverished families and children each year. Save the Family was something that I would actually keep their information when I would come across a lot of families that, like especially a husband and wife are separating. A lot of times, obviously the wife might not have worked, and the husband was the one that was bringing home the money and paying everything. What does the wife do with the kids? So, there's a lot of different resources that we try to share with them. So one of them was Save the Family, which was a great nonprofit foundation. The next one is Child Crisis Arizona. So when there is a crisis going on in a family, when there's a call for service where people need to go ahead and maybe the children need to get out of a certain household, Child Crisis Arizona will step in. They provide not only the prevention and intervention, but also programs for children and families that might be at risk through those residential services. And they also provide foster care, adoptions, counseling, and a lot more. And then that's their website, Child Crisis AZ. This one's United Food Bank. I was actually just there this Tuesday. There was an event for youth engagement, and these high school kids from Campo Verde High School, they actually went there and they packaged food for a bunch of families. My family and I have actually been there. You can volunteer your time, and it's great. They play music, and it's like a fun vibe. You're there for like maybe an hour, and you're just packaging food. You're like kind of trying to beat somebody else, on your line, trying to see if you can package food fastest. So it's a great nonprofit, and it's right here in Mesa. The way that I would always give directions when somebody, especially from the police department, I would say it's right next to CBI. So Community Bridges International is where we used to take people that had a lot of mental health issues, and we would take them to CBI, and they are like literally connected to the same building where they provide food. So it's just north of it by the courthouse. But they distribute food within not only just us in Maricopa, but also Gila, Pinal, Southern Navajo, Southern Apache counties to go ahead and just provide the food insecurity in Arizona. There's a website. The next one is SARC. So this is the Southwest Autism Research and Resource Center. They offer consultative services for educators as well, and they provide teen and adult services for those that are on the spectrum. Also diagnostic services, family services, and community service as well. This is a great program. I created an event called the Sensory Awareness Family Event, where I provided an environment where people that were sensitive to lights and sounds, I gave them an environment that was more comfortable. So like I created events at Trader Joe's where they can go shopping, and they can go ahead and they can experience, what it's like being inside a grocery store. A lot of these families can't shop with their loved one because they might be sensitive to the sound. They might be sensitive to the smell, to anything, the lights. So we provided sunglasses, earplugs. We had them reduce the noise on the till machines when you check out, and we provided help. So I partnered with Gilbert Fire, and I had a police department there and all these other departments, and we provided a safe environment for them to shop. And then we did that the same thing for like a public safety day where they can learn about police, they can learn about fire, and then get used to us dressed in uniform, because oftentimes their behavior might be mistaken for somebody that might be under the influence of drugs or narcotics or alcohol. If they're slurring their words, or if they're just nonverbal, they take a long time communicating with you, they don't look you in the eyes. Some people, if they're not trained, they might kind of mistaken that for somebody being under the influence or somebody that's withholding information. So one of the key things that I started doing at that department was learning how we can educate the police officers that are out there and they're engaging with with this population on how to recognize those clues. And fortunately, it's put them in a positive light because they've won an award. I mean, it's like a lot of great things that the department is doing because of that. And MESA does that as well too. MESA is CIT certified. They're autism certified through the international IBCCES, I believe. This one's called Arizona Autism United. They provide ABA therapy, which is applied behavior analysis. They provide those on the spectrum with access to support without barriers for like speech, language therapy, occupational therapy, psychological services, DDD services, family support, and a lot more. That's the QR code, and that's the website. Okay, so in closing, I wanted to go ahead and talk to you guys about courage, community, and connection. First, I'll talk about courage. So it doesn't always look like a big dramatic moment to have courage. Sometimes it's asking if a student, if they're just playing okay, just going out there and talking to them and saying, is everything fine? Yes, ma'am. Sure. Act 2? Cool. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, they do. Yeah, Sark does. Yeah. And there's a lot of other campuses as well. I just didn't fill it in this presentation with them, but like if there's somebody that's really on the spectrum and they need help, like a loved one or whatever, also there's Lawrence Institute for Education. We call it LIFE, LIFE, and it's on Gilbert Road just south of Warner. They help from like 1-year-old all the way up. They even have people that are 60 in there, and it's like a campus, and they provide everything there for them. It's a great program. They even have a swimming pool. I mean, they have a lot of things there at that program. I used to partner with them a lot in a lot of our events, and that's a great program as well. Of course. Yeah. 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 Correct. Right. Yeah. Right. Right. And the great thing about these organizations is they're not really competing with one another. They're all in it together to help. And so even if something like that Stark doesn't provide, you can ask them, say, who does provide this in the community? They'll be more than willing to share with you whatever. I would always ask questions like, hey, I'm looking for somebody that does this. They're like, we don't do that, but this organization does. And it's just they're getting more and more, a growth in that area where there's more, I guess, enlightenment about what's needed in the community. And these organizations are great. Mm-hmm. Okay, so back to courage. Sometimes it's just choosing to listen. Sometimes it's giving grace instead of giving judgment. And sometimes it's just building something that invites trust before it's even needed. As far as community goes, as I go back to my first slide, where being in that multicultural environment, I was able to ask a lot of questions, and it gave my development of understanding people a lot more. That experience helped me personally see the value in environments that are rich, diverse, and they're welcoming. So it's the kind of places where curiosity is safe and connection is even possible. So I wanted to end by having a quote. It says, if you spend your time chasing butterflies, they'll fly away. But if you spend your time making a beautiful garden, the butterflies will come. So what I wanted to do is have you guys start thinking about building that type of garden of empathy, knowledge, and presence where a student feels safe enough to land here. The learning and the transformation will come if you do that. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Of course.
Oh my gosh, I feel like if we had him for another hour, we'd have all these other questions, right? Let me walk over here. So we want to thank you for your time. Oh, thank you for the mic. He's digging deep from back in the olden days. Thank you, Levi. That was amazing. I know we have lots more questions.
Yeah.
I think, though, in sticking with the agenda, but I just very quickly, did anyone have any additional questions if we have just 1 minute for that while we have him here? Okay, all right. Well, then, in this case, then, I'm going to bring up Dr. Megan Garvey, and she's going to close us out with some information, and I think we're all good. Thank you all. Thank you for your time, sir. Thank you. Whoop, here she comes with Steph. We have a mic.
Yeah, I have the fun job, so I get to give gifts out. So my first is just a thank you to Levi. We have a tumbler in here, and then we did some work with mindfulness and tactical brain training, and so I thought that you might enjoy some of those resources as well.
for sure.
Yeah, so thank you so much.
you.
And the Sendas grant, thank you. Levi had shared at the beginning that he often does events where he will find organizations to purchase books when he speaks, and the Sendas grant purchased almost 1,000 books, I think it was, the children's books that are going to be used by the Education Studies and Reading Department with future teachers and working in the community and in their reading classes. So we're so thrilled to be able to do that. And then my other two gifts are for two women who are just have been exceptional to work with. Melissa Meadows, Melissa is not here right now, but you got me on film. Melissa Meadows, this is her last day here at MCC. She was the director of our Sendas grant for the past 3.5 years. And these are specially funded projects. And so the good news is Melissa will be moving to the district office, and she is working for the foundation there, and she will just be like, her skills are just going to be tremendous in that space. And so we have a gift for her. And then also for Tanya Little, who is the admin assistant for the Sendas grant. The work that these two women do throughout the year for this grant, if you're familiar with it, it has touched so many areas of our college. We're just grateful for the work that they're doing. And I want to share what's in these bags because they're shining stars. And so these are star plants.
Oh, nice.
And then I figured that they need to be well rested now. And so well-rested tea and some power berries, some chocolate power berries. So I'm so grateful for you and for Melissa, and would like to give them both a round of applause for the great work that they do. And we invite you to join us upstairs in LB 300. We have paletas this afternoon, and there are posters upstairs so you can see some of the good work that your colleagues and our students are doing with community in their work at MCC. So join us, please, in LB 300 to wrap up the day. Thank you.
Of course.
My name is Nelina Rodriguez. They call me
Oh, really? Yeah. So we're all kind of tired and burned out after a couple of years. But mine
But I'd love to bring you from that perspective. Would you mind? Excellent. Thank you. And I have to ask questions.
No, I love questions. Yeah.